I
And
absolutely encourage do your research. Don't
yeah,
just go for what you hear. There's so
yeah,
much information out there about the pros and cons and the values. And at any time, organizations are more than willing to, sit down and have conversations with individuals in the community to help them understand, connect you with those that recognize the value and why, what the pros and cons of or why they're so connected to that
yeah.
organization and their
Mhm.
mission. So definitely you can hear and, align, but also have some independent thinking, lean into your curiosity first, and do
Yes.
your research. Yeah.
Hi there, and welcome to the HR Podcast. This is Linda Misagatas.
And Cindy Manuel, and we'll be your co hosts. After spending years working in and with HR, we thought, why not start a podcast to support the important HR community? We believe the way things have always been done isn't necessarily what's going to work in the future. So we're diving into topics that support HR and working women as they navigate the future of work. We're talking about professional growth and also how we can support each other as human beings.
We can't wait to bring you insights from HR experts, thought leaders, and inspiring women who are making a real difference in their organization and communities. They'll share their journeys and tips on balancing work and life in a better way. We're excited to learn alongside you and hope you'll pick up some great takeaways from tips and tricks to worksheets that you can actually use in your daily life. So grab your favorite beverage,
Or lace up your walking shoes and join us for the HR Her Resources podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Her Resources podcast. I'm here in the studio with my stupendous co-host, Cindy Manuel. How are you?
Wow. Every time it just gets bigger and better. Thank you so much.
I
I
know,
back
right?
at you.
How are you doing? I know we were talking before we jumped on that it's been a rough week for everyone this week.
It's
So,
been busy, but it's been good. And for us to have our friend LaToya with us on a Friday is just kind of like that's the sunshine at the end of it, right? So we're
I
good.
totally agree.
We're
No,
good.
I 100% agree with you. It's always nice to reconnect with old friends. So we're super excited to have LaToya in the studio with us today.
Yeah.
Cindy, do you want to introduce everyone to LaToya?
I would be honored to get to introduce LaToya. So, LaToya Linzey is a seasoned HR executive with over 20 years of experience leading people and culture strategies across both the private and public sectors. This is what's so cool about LaToya. She's got all the background.
Yeah.
She began her HR career in the private sector, building a strong foundation in core human resource functions before transitioning to public service with the city and county of Denver, which is where we got to meet her. There, she supported one of the city's largest departments, driving workforce planning and recruitment strategies that emphasize diversity, equity, inclusion, employee engagement, and professional development. In 2021, LaToya joined Colorado Public Radio as the Senior Vice President of People and Culture, where she leads the HR team and oversees strategic initiatives that shape the employee experience. Her role includes developing and sustaining the organization's diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI efforts, aligning HR strategy with CPR's mission and long term goals. LaToya's leadership extends across all facets of HR human resources. She oversees compensation, HR operations, including the development of policies, process optimization, and ensuring compliance with all employment laws and regulations. She's known for designing and championing employee experience strategies that enhance workplace culture. With a strong commitment to talent acquisition excellence, LaToya has developed a robust, inclusive recruitment practices that attract and retain top tier talent, which is not easy in the sector
Not
that
in
she's in
today's, that's for
and not in
sure.
today's environment. Over
Yep.
the last several years, she has built and implemented true HR business partnering at CPR, which has helped to align workforce planning with organizational goals and drive measurable results. She's a Colorado native who grew up in Denver's Northeast Park Hill neighborhood. and is a results driven leader known for designing people centered solutions that drive organizational success. Her approach blends business acumen with a deep commitment to fostering inclusive, engaged, and high performing workplaces. LaToya also holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration and a Master's in Organizational Leadership with a concentration in strategic HR and project management. She is also certified in change management, further equipping her to lead through organizational growth and transformation. Oh my goodness. Welcome
Right?
to the Her
Holy cow.
Resources Podcast. Yes.
Man.
So happy to have you here with us today, LaToya.
It's a pleasure to be with you all, and a lot of that was, related to the growth and development that I had under you 2, so it's a pleasure. Thank you very
Ah,
much.
We're
no,
so
the
happy
pleasure
to
was
have
all
you.
ours.
Yeah.
Yes. No, for sure. Well, and a shout out to us Colorado natives, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
know.
That's right.
You worked at the city and county of Denver with us, which Linda and I have talked about before. We were both very proud to get to work there to, kind of honor where we're from. And then
Yeah.
Colorado Public Radio, you've gotten
Yeah,
Oh,
two. Yeah.
yeah, 2 big, organizations that all kinda align with the foundation of supporting the residents of Colorado for sure, so,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely
No.
love it. Just such a great story, and we're excited for you to share. So, my first question is really what initially drew you to work for the nonprofit? You'd come from
Mhm.
private, went into public, now you're a nonprofit. So, kind of what drew you to that?
Yeah, I will say first things first, I don't think my changes, are driven by me, I think they choose me first, if that
Mm,
makes sense in
It
some type
does.
of way.
it does,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, and so while I was with the city, while I absolutely have a deep love for the city, I recognize that you can't stay in one place forever.
Yeah.
In order to grow, challenge yourself, you may have to step out of that. And I think I put that out there verbally in the universe. And um, through a mentor, got connected to Colorado Public Radio. I had already been a fan of their classical um, music station
Mm,
at that time. And so was a easy transition to have that conversation, had some conversations with the CEO at that time. They were in a place that they had deepened their commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, or made the commitment to deepen it, and was thinking of creating a new role to help support and lead those efforts. And I think it all kind of aligned. And, I think from a standpoint of thinking about it, comparing, contrasting from CPR to the city of Denver, the passion, after talking with a lot of the employees within that organization, I felt like was very similar to the public sector.
mhm.
A deep rooted passion, a really deep rooted um, want and need to support the organization and do good work on behalf of the organization. I think you also see that a lot from the individuals that listen to our stations,
Yeah.
read our news, our donors. So it's a deeper rooted support system and value system, I think, tied to Colorado Public Radio, which I think was very attractive too.
Love
Yeah, I
that.
love that. Absolutely. Well, it's clear that service was something that was important to you
Yeah.
because, moving from the private sector into government and then over to not for profits, I mean, you could have easily gone back into the private sector, but you kind of continued on that mission of serving and giving back to the community. So hats off to you for
So
that.
true. So
Yeah.
true.
I at times think, those are the areas where employees and staff are forgotten about sometimes.
Mhm.
They kind of, they help to maintain support and services that we depend on the most,
Yeah.
but they're also behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes they need just as much support and advocacy as any employee in the private sector. Not downsizing the private sector, but it's just not always as upfront.
Yeah.
Yes.
Us recognizing that every step we take in our community is kind of surrounded by some of the things that these nonprofit or public sector employees do.
Yeah.
Mhm. Totally agree.
Absolutely.
There's so many services that are provided that people have no idea about.
True.
Cindy and I have talked about that before, that, even in the government side of it, that most people's only connection to government is their interaction. They
Yeah,
have no idea the amount of people and services that are provided by their government, because it's either what they've interacted with, and then everything else is political, right? So they have
absolutely.
no idea. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there's not as many resources as people would think. And what I always say is when you don't notice what's happening, means
Yeah.
there's
Something's happening.
something behind the scenes, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
yeah. So,
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
LaToya, what unique challenges and rewards have you experienced then working in HR for a mission-driven organization like CP?
Mhm.
I would say, for benefits, again, I think the amount of passion and pride across the employees that work for the organization again, and just a deep connection and to the mission.
Mhm.
Um, Nonprofits obviously are very, very much mission driven.
Yeah.
Everything that is stood up within any nonprofit organization is surrounded and prioritized by that mission, if that makes sense. So I think it takes being rooted and connected to the mission to another level. I think from a challenge perspective, what I would say is I see a lot of nonprofits being put in a position that they almost normalize doing more with less.
Mhm.
And I think that is unintentional. I think sometimes when you're starting a nonprofit, there's probably small groups of individuals that have to wear more than one hat.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're wearing four or five hats.
Right.
Um, bless their hearts.
Yep.
And then you get to a place where, as the organization grows, you don't really revisit. Is that still sustainable, if that makes
Yeah.
sense?
Right.
And it kind of starts to impact innovation, strategy.
Mhm.
It starts to impact, in a lot of ways, how you also retain staff, because
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
that's a work-life balance. Um,
Yeah.
it impacts how you evaluate, are you paying someone appropriately? Are they able to prioritize what's on their plate? Like, if there's
Mhm.
10 things on the plate based off of what their role is, how do they know which of those 10 are the priority things if they have to put something on hold, if that makes sense? So, I think that's one of the biggest challenges. So we've been working a lot on really asking why. If there are people wearing them more than one hat, does it need to be that way? What's the why behind it needing to be that way? And how do we set it up so that person that's actually providing that resource is able to actually be successful with doing what we're asking them to do?
I love
Those
that.
are great questions. I
Yeah.
think a lot of organizations could take a page out of your book and asking those. I literally was just talking to my boss about that this morning, saying, we've really got to be thoughtful about how much we're asking from the teams,
Yeah,
because, to your point, everybody is driving towards this more with less concept, and this belief that somehow technology and AI is going to solve all of our
But
problems.
yeah,
But the reality of it is that there are people who are wearing multiple hats, are spread very thin. And you're right. I think that when you do work in a not for profit or even in public sector, you tend to get used to the doing more for less. And so it does become more natural. But I love what you said about the fact that the impact that it has to innovation, the ability to really take a program to the next level, right? Because when you're
yeah.
spread too thin, you can only do this much. But if you could focus on it, maybe you could do this much, and think about how much more you could benefit from that.
Yeah, it's quality and quantity consideration on top of that,
Yeah.
and I think, you know, one of the things that I've kind of witnessed is it definitely has a barrier to understanding what number of resources may you need
Mhm.
if you were to break those hats up and separate them, if that makes sense. And so
It
when you're
does.
doing workforce planning, and trying to identify what's the appropriate number of positions we need to actually get this work done, if
Mhm.
we're constantly putting extra responsibilities in one person's hat, you don't really get to see that
yeah.
Yeah.
the way you need to. So I think that would be one of the challenges I think that definitely nonprofits face into.
I
And
could
you're
see that.
you're talking about, a lot about the employees in general, right? And the staff
Yeah.
in general. I know that probably puts an added burden on top of your leaders as well. So, is there anything that, and I know you're in people and culture, you're the SVP of people and culture, and so first of all, hats off to you because I know that puts a lot on you and your team's plate. How do you, support your leaders, LaToya?
Yeah. And I will say, Cindy, one of the things we have to do is kind of you don't know what you don't know, and
Mhm.
recognizing that, and trying to meet people where they're at and help introduce them to new ideas or ways or concepts of how they're actually truly evaluating their staff. So a couple of things we've started doing in my organization, we do this what I call an HR report out.
Mhm.
And I'm bringing
Awesome.
all different facets of data and information to the table, and particularly we talk a lot about um, just standard leave, ADA, FMLA, but there's regular leave, vacation, sick time.
Yeah.
The amount of that, the total amount of average sick time or leave that an employee may take. So the amount you may be working with 10 staff members, but on average, with when you're looking at the amount of leave used over a year period of time, you're actually maybe working with maybe eight.
Yeah,
And
that's
Yes.
true.
so if you have that data and information up front,
Yeah.
how much differently would you think about how
Mm.
you resource or ask for your needs on the behalf of your team? So, really using data and information to um, enlighten our
Mhm.
leaders and really asking them, where they see their pain points. I'd be curious,
Yeah.
sometimes you ask the questions and sometimes the leaders hadn't even asked, and that's okay. If you can
Mhm.
lighten that aha moment, then they can go
Yes.
ask those specific questions of their team and come back along with that data. It gives us a good start on, okay, this is what we're really working with, where we need to be, where are our gaps. So
Yeah.
I like
that's
that.
one of the examples I think has been really helpful. It's just, you just, especially I think in nonprofits, um, the resources from, I think, a systems or HR side of things is not
Mhm.
always as robust as you would see in the private sector.
Yes.
Um,
Sure.
yeah, and if you a lot of the employees in nonprofits have grown up there,
Yeah,
similar
yeah,
to public sector, and so
right.
um, it's a good opportunity to bring different facets, if you're in the HR role, from the private, from the public, and
Yeah.
introduce them to the nonprofits, and then kind of mold it um, in a way that works for that organization.
I love
Yeah,
that. It's
2
like
really great
empowerment.
points.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You're
Yeah.
empowering your
No, I
leaders.
totally agree.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and you bring up a really good point is that often strategic workforce planning has always been more focused in like your manufacturing, retail
Yes.
organizations where they're, thinking about it through that level of staffing. So based off of, time of year, number of people, holidays, whatever. But the reality of it is strategic workforce planning is something that actually should go across the entire organization because exactly to your point, Latoya, there are all these different times people are out on vacation or around the holidays or that the work doesn't change. So how are you strategically managing your workforce across all of that to ensure that you aren't seeing fatigue or burnout that's happening throughout the organization? I love that you're talking about that for sure, related to that. And then also just the technology. So it doesn't always have to be about the tech, right? It's how do you use the data? And sometimes that's also been lacking in public sector and in
Yeah,
not for profits because to your point, they grew up in it. So it was a little more personnel driven versus
okay.
strategic HR. And so not really thinking through that lens. So it's incredible that you've been able to bring that level of experience and knowledge to CPR and really kind of help expand their thoughts around those things.
That data helps to make those decisions for sure.
Absolutely.
And it's a
Absolutely.
combination, right? You use your qualitative ears on the ground. What are you
Yeah.
hearing? What are you experiencing along with the data? Do those things, two things align to kind of help drive your decision making? So it's a yes and for sure.
Yeah.
And
Such a
that's where
great
you
point.
and your team come in. You do the quantitative and the qualitative. which is
Mhm.
helpful. I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine the other day, and she's done HR for years and years, and she retired. And so we were having a conversation, and she was telling me it's taking a while for her to sort of recuperate a bit. Not that that's the word she used, but,
Mhm.
it takes a lot out of you when you're in HR, it's a lot, and s
It's a lot.
Yeah,
it is,
yeah.
and
My
then
goodness.
yeah, and she was like, "We take care of everyone else, and we sometimes forget to take care of ourselves." Uh,
Mhm.
Absolutely.
so I
Yeah.
know that puts a lot of pressure as well, LaToya. Is that kinda what you have found in your experience as well over 20 years?
Oh, absolutely. I think, as someone I would love for someone to do a study across all HR professionals. Something about us is has a unique tendency to mother, I think, and take
Caregiver.
care of.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and in that, you mothers are known for taking care of others and maybe putting themselves to the side at times, and
Mhm.
which is not always healthy.
That's right.
No.
So um, I have definitely experienced that while I've been in the HR profession, but I think especially in the role that I'm currently in.
Mm.
Um, and then, having employees that also report to me, how am I walking the talk for them,
Yes.
or
Mhm. Yeah.
setting a pathway
So
for them
good.
to take care of themselves, right? And so, um, you do have to be mindful and keep that in the forefront of your mind. And I'll be honest, it's not easy, and I don't always do great at it. I think I do great at it more so for everybody else than I do, but I think on a weekly basis, what I do try to do for myself is at least reflect on, did you do something to help balance yourself out this week? What one little thing,
Good.
Yeah,
just
great
pull
piece
out.
of
It's
advice.
not going to be perfect. You'll
Yeah.
build up to it. I think at the beginning of the year, every year, I'll say, oh, I'm going to take at least one day off a month. And that doesn't always work. But
Yeah.
at least you're shooting out and saying what the goal is. And then you can
Yes.
kind of align into it. So just keep it in the forefront of your mind. Keep talking about it with your teams.
Mhm.
One of the things I try to do with my team is at the beginning of every month, we have flex days that we offer in addition to leave. And we regularly together schedule out at the beginning of each month when everyone is going to take their flex day.
That's
So there
Oh,
awesome.
is no
yeah.
excuse to not
Yeah.
take a day off, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it
It's
I love
does.
almost kind of
that.
it's in our process. It's kind of
Yeah.
normalized in our system. So
I like
yeah.
that. That's a great idea. I might have
Such a
to
good
incorporate
idea.
that in to think about,
Yeah.
yeah, how can I help encourage my team to take that time that they so desperately need. So, and even if it's just one day, like you said, just
Yeah.
one day to just kind of have to yourself and have a chance to reset. So,
That's a
that's
good
great
gold
And I
advice.
think,
nugget.
if I was to add to that, I think it also adds to shifting the mindset of people feeling more comfortable for asking and being comfortable with taking.
Really good
That's so
point. Yeah.
true. If I
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
my manager never takes time off, which I worked for a
Mhm.
manager like that years ago, and I told her, and was amazing as a manager, and I told her, I said, "When I see you working all these hours, it makes me feel like I should be working all those hours."
Mhm.
And no
Yeah.
one had ever shared that with her, and she was appreciative of that because she had a team. I think there were at least a dozen of us on that HR team, and it she shifted as well. So I saw her taking more time off, which felt like it
Okay.
gave us permission to have
Yeah.
more, balance in our lives as well.
Yeah.
So,
I like
Keeping it
that.
present, talking about,
yes,
my team, and I'm especially proud of them. They'll ping us. We'll ping each other and say, "Hey, I'm gonna take an hour during the day and just go for a jog or go for a walk.
love
I'll be back."
that.
And so, I think if you keep it present and you
Yeah.
kind of experiment with it, it's like it's normalized, and it's
Mhm.
Mhm.
not. Oh, I have to be so stressed out or get to the point where I'm hardly alive before I'm asking for leave. It's almost
Right.
natural for us to say, we need to take care of myself. I'm going to take this time. So
I love
Mhm.
keeping
that.
it
Yeah,
present.
Yeah.
absolutely. No, I like that.
And, LaToya, you spoke about your CEO there at CPR. He was a big part of your hiring when to really highlight the value of DEI And as we know, and Linda and I have had this conversation with a handful of our guests, that DEI is something that has been sort of shifted over the last several months. And so, but I am going to assume that it's still very important to CPR. So kind of how do you keep that in your day-to-day HR practices when it's something that has sort of been, I don't know, kind of no longer is as valued as it used to?
There's a big rollback on it, right? I
That's
mean,
true.
there's
Let's call
just
it what it
just
is. Yeah.
exactly. I know
Yeah.
we always try to walk that line, but I mean, the
Yeah,
reality
it
of it
is.
is we're seeing that big rollback on it. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, great question, Cindy. How are you all dealing with that? Because I'm assuming you're also dealing with some of the funding associated with that too,
Oh,
with the
we
pullback on
absolutely
funding.
are.
So, yeah,
Yeah, we're
yeah,
in that fight right now. And, I'll say, um, shout out to our CEO. He is absolutely one of the reasons why I am and remain at CPR today.
Awesome.
When I started, the commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion was important to me. It was something that, had started to get more embedded in at the city before I left. And I have a strong passion for. Um, first, that commitment, the commitment, my position exists because of that commitment. And
mm,
I
so
love that.
that's important. I think when I think about it from a current state perspective, it has also been extremely refreshing that um, we're not changing.
yeah,
We have
yeah,
made the commitment that we are not changing. And I'll talk a little bit about why. When I started in this role, it was really important to me that DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, not be a program. It
yeah,
be a commitment, it'd be something that we do on a day-to-day. So I'm
mhm,
building our HR processes, structures, strategies, policies, procedures around DEI versus embedding it into HR and it being
yeah,
a second component or a subcomponent, if that makes sense. And I think that
mhm,
changes the lens of how you go about doing those things, like a policy or a practice or
yeah,
how you show up as a leader. If that's the umbrella in which DEI is built upon, then you don't have I think it kind of removes the um, need to try to regroup or change things around, if that
Yes.
makes sense.
Not
it
a
does.
So,
marketing tool. It's the
no,
culture is
yeah,
embedded.
Yeah,
it's bigger than just putting people in a room for training or saying do this. It's a lifestyle, if that makes sense,
yes, it
professional
is.
and individual. And so
Mhm.
we have conversations about how all those things not only support the organization, but also do they align to who we say we want to be from that lens, and
Yeah,
keeping that in the forefront. So we remain committed. We obviously are absolutely public media as a whole is um, in the process of being somewhat attacked. Our funding is being attacked in a
yep,
lot of ways, and so that's causing a lot of additional angst and stress across the public media profession as a whole. But we remain committed. I talk to a lot of DEI practitioners across the public media space. They also remain committed. Some have shifted in different ways, but and learned how revisited how they may say things or do things, but
yeah,
they still remain committed. We haven't changed a lot about our walk or talk. I'll be honest with you. Um, and I think that's important.
Yes.
I don't Diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging is nothing to be afraid of or fearful of. It is
right.
not about one particular area or group. It's about all
Mhm,
of us. And so how are
yeah,
we being mindful of how we are best supporting all employees?
yeah,
Um, and so that commitment is important to me, and I think we remain in that.
I
I love
love
that.
that. Yeah.
Mhm,
And
yeah,
I
it's so
think it
important.
starts with your CEO, and you're
Absolutely.
obviously very integral in that culture as well. So
Mhm,
that's amazing to hear. I love that. Absolutely
yeah,
love that.
At the Delta Principle, we are transforming the way you experience change. Have you ever experienced an organizational change where your employees pushed back because it was too much, too fast, or they just didn't understand why they couldn't do things the way they've always done them? What about where communication was non-existent or unorganized, with important updates getting lost in the shuffle, leaving people confused? And have you ever experienced change where morale was at an all-time low because the change felt overwhelming and not aligned with your organization's culture? If you are being asked to lead an important organizational change, especially if you're new to leading change, or if you're just feeling overwhelmed, the Delta Principle is here to support you. We work closely with you as a trusted partner, co-creating real-world solutions to address your unique challenges, and we equip you and your organization for future success. Are you gearing up for your next transformation journey or exploring ways to strengthen your change management skills? Then let's connect. This year, we're thrilled to introduce Leading Change, a training designed for leaders driving organizational initiatives, and Navigating Change, a training tailored to empower teams and adapting to change with confidence. Our coaching and training sessions are fully customizable to meet your organization's unique needs. Reach out today to see how we can partner with you to make your next change a success. You can find us on LinkedIn or by emailing us at info@thedeltaprinciple.com.
When I think kind of to your point, is some of it was around people got real hung up on the word diversity, right? Because they made that about it was about race, right, or color
Yeah.
of the skin. It was, which was always strange to me. So a lot of organizations changed to equity, inclusion, and belonging, and dropped the D word. And the whole thing about that is, like, if you just think about what the definition of diversity is, it has absolutely nothing, to your point, with a single group. It's a diverse need across all of us who have different facets to our life, whether it's neurodiversity, or whether it's, whether we're women or
Exactly.
men, or, with the color of our skin, our race, our religion. It's like all of those components that factor into it. And it's funny just how people just get so hung up on a single word. And that just easily takes away from the whole purpose of it in the conversation. So I love that your CEO is staying firm to the commitment behind it, because to
Yeah.
your point, these efforts were in play long before we turned it into a media circus, right? Because that's really was part of the problem that really drove a lot of the challenges around DEI and B as well, is that, to Cindy's point, is it became more of a marketing tool. It was businesses that have more diversity, have higher profit margins,
Yeah.
and so a lot of organizations kind of jumped on the bandwagon, but they weren't committed firmly. And
The
those
wrong reason.
organizations who were
Yes.
truly committed, and that was
Yes.
part of who they were in the first place, not a
Yeah.
darn thing has changed in what it is
Absolutely.
that they're doing today. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And, I think it's also especially important to point out, especially for nonprofit organizations that are mission
Yeah.
driven. And I'll use CPR as an example. Our mission is to serve all Coloradans.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
in order to serve all Coloradans, we have to understand a unique perspective of every single community and how we actually do that.
Yes.
Who else to ask how we do that but the community? And
Yeah,
so,
which
in
is
order to
diverse.
have absolutely, which is
Yes.
Amen.
diverse.
Yeah.
Okay, and so how do you drive your mission if you are, taking away or dismissing the
Uh-huh.
value of diversity? You just cannot we would not be able to move our mission forward without it.
No,
Those
it's
that
so true.
diversity brings the perspectives, which helps
Mhm.
us understand how do we align, how do we support? Because I think, this end of the day, and it may be more challenging in the private sector, but people don't have to support and listen to CPR. They don't have to
Right.
They
donate to
choose.
CPR.
Yeah.
They choose to,
Yes.
right? And so
Right.
there's a
Yeah.
different way a different responsibility that we hold on how we support the community. So we could not do what we're doing without these efforts.
No, I like that. And I love what you just said there about the community. Years ago, I was at a conference, and we were talking. She was the director for the Department of Corrections in New York. And as they were doing studies around that as well, is kind of to your point, LaToya, on how do you service the community? So a lot of times in those situations in corrections, you've got a diverse population in the correctional system, and
Yeah,
how you deal with different things, because it could have been that there was a cultural thing that maybe someone
absolutely.
was taking the wrong way if I didn't understand that culture, and so
There you
maybe
go.
then I react to that in the wrong way, right? And so that it is that whole community-based approach to it, to
Yes.
really understanding, and then when you understand, you can better serve your community and help support those constituents. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I
yeah,
love
I
that.
love that. Yeah.
So, LaToya, what are some other HR priorities or shifts that you see on the horizon for nonprofits, especially right now?
And maybe especially related to how are you attracting and retaining and recruiting
Mhm.
employees, because
Yeah.
I would imagine that, like, all organizations are facing challenges. I have to imagine not-for-profits really struggle with
Yeah.
that attraction and retention of employees.
I would say starting there, it, and I can only speak for our organization. There is such a passion for CPR. Typically, we see those that apply to our positions, they have already been a fan of CPR.
Okay.
Um, I think what has been challenging, going back to the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, um, is a very interesting dynamic when it comes to journalism and the diversity of candidate pools in Colorado for journalism. And so
Mm,
I think that is one of the challenges that we try to face into and figure out, okay, what in our talent acquisition process can we do, but to kind of attract candidates beyond just Colorado to support our mission and vision. And so I think for a CPR perspective, that's absolutely a challenge, but a great opportunity for us as well. I think
yeah.
it helps us also refrain how we've used our student development program, our interns, and our fellowships
Mhm.
to expose individuals to the organization. So kind of helps
Cheerleaders.
to absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, and so for shifting HR strategy, um, I would say, if I was to pull anything out of my hat right now, based off of what we're experiencing, um, the shifting dynamic and political viewpoints in America, I think,
Mhm.
has a significant impact on the overall budgets of nonprofits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so we, from an HR standpoint, have had to be a lot more nimble and a lot more strategic about how can we still offer some of the support and resources that we want to offer,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and be creative about it. First thing sometimes when budgets kind of get reduced, things that go away is the development budgets,
That's right.
Mhm.
um, things like that that kind of are may not have a immediate impact, but have a long-term positive benefit to the organization and employees within it. And so
Yeah.
looking at things in a different lens, finding ways to still do things like, are there things we can do? If there's one particular uh, initiative that we're trying to launch into, what can be done in-house and what needs to be outsourced,
Mhm.
so we can kind of save some of the time, effort, and budget associated with that.
Smart.
Are there creative ways beyond what is on the table to actually get those resources on the table? And an example I'll put on the table here is um, we wanted to do and offer some proactive executive coaching for all of our leaders.
Mhm.
And if you do that for all of your leadership, you can imagine how much that may cost, right? And so
Yeah.
looking beyond that, we were able to tap into our employee resource support system, and they have a group of counselors or executive
Oh.
coaches that were
Oh.
open and available for us because we have a number of sessions that employees get. So we were able to really decrease the amount or the costs associated with providing that service through
Mhm.
using our support system. So just being creative, thinking about
Ah,
what what all do we already have on the table, and are we turning over every rock, every rug to see how can they actually support us with doing what we're trying to do?
It sounds
Well,
like a
and
great idea too, like
yeah,
very
I love
scrappy.
that.
Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that idea.
absolutely. Yeah, kinda digging in
You have
and
to.
getting creative for
Yeah.
sure. Well, and I wonder, LaToya, maybe you could share with our listeners a little bit too, because I think a lot of people don't know what, like, Colorado Public Radio or what even NPR, it's more than just, news, right? There's a lot more that CPR does for the community, helping to support the community. So maybe talk a little bit about that because maybe it also opens people's eyes a little bit more to why they should continue to support CPR, NPR, the other, just really kind of across the country, what's going on.
Yeah, and I will say our primary driver and resource is news and journalism. So we have journalists that support news and journalism on the behalf of Colorado from all regions. We have two music stations, classical and indie, that also offer listening services to the individuals within Colorado. And I think there's this third tier that we or fourth tier that we have, which is the community building, right? And talking back to the constraints, I don't think sometimes people realize that when it comes to messaging and emergency messaging, typically you get that messaging through your radio station. And so if you think about what's happened in Texas
Right.
um, recently, and them not having that emergency management system in place or a component of that, um, in addition to giving you the day-to-day news, that's happening within your community, when those emergencies arise,
Mm,
there are primary especially in rural areas, they primarily depend on their radio station to inform them
it's
about those things.
critical.
Yeah.
Yeah, very critical. So I think
Mm.
that's one of the things I would highlight the most in relations to a value that we do beyond just the day-to-day reporting and news.
Absolutely. Well, and I also know Colorado CPR helps local musicians, which is a really cool way
Yes.
as well,
Yeah,
right? Because
absolutely.
oftentimes it's really hard to break it, to get out there and to
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and to try to
to
get on
share
any of
your
the
music.
mainstream media is really tough. So the fact that CPR is out there supporting local musicians and giving them
Yeah.
a platform is also something pretty cool.
We do on a regular basis a local 303 where you can come and listen and be exposed to new indie independent artists on a regular basis. So you're absolutely right. That gives them that additional opportunity and exposure to kind of launch into what their passion is, which is that music. So
Yes.
Just giving
absolutely,
back to the community like that, yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
That's
I love that.
awesome.
That's great. It's always cool, and I think that's a big part of it, and I think that would be our message to all of our listeners about all of this stuff, right? It's about educating yourself, understanding the programs, the services, the reasons behind, instead of just making judgment calls based on a lack of information. Like, get out
Yeah.
there, understand, support your community, support your locals. With in this case here with CPR, get out there and support what CPR is
That's right.
doing because CPR is supporting you. So
Yeah.
so you
Absolutely.
get out there and do that. Yeah.
Absolutely encourage. Do your research. Don't just
Yes.
go for what you hear. There's so
Yeah.
much information out there about the pros and cons and the values. And at any time, organizations are more than willing to, sit down and have conversations with individuals in the community to help them understand, connect you with those that recognize the value and why, what the pros and cons of or why they're so connected to that
Yeah.
organization and their
Mhm.
mission. So definitely you can hear and, align, but also have some independent thinking, lean into your curiosity first, and do
Yes.
your research. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love
That's one of
that.
Cindy's favorite
Yeah.
things to talk about is being
Curiosity.
curious. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and you guys are supporting our First Amendment rights. So thank you for doing that. Let's all vote
Yes.
with our dollars, right? And so
Yeah.
what
Absolutely.
I heard you say earlier was that your culture aligns with the inclusivity and, for your community, for your organization, if that's something that's of value to our listeners and our community, let's vote with our dollars. Let's support,
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
these nonprofits that are
Absolutely.
so important. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
So, LaToya, kind of bringing it back to HR, because a lot of our community is HR. What is one HR myth that you would like to bust?
Wow. I would say the myth that I would want to bust is HR is just for the organization and not for the
Mm,
employees.
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Say more about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
And I will also say this, I also recognize that as a profession, HR professionals have a lot of work to do to also help debunk that myth.
I agree.
Um,
Yeah,
that myth did not that this was not created on its own,
That's
right?
right.
There is something happening in organizations and how we may or may not be supporting employees that helps them walk away with that perception or that
yeah,
experience. So,
I love that.
um, and that I think for me, the more and more I got ingrained into HR, I don't want to be an HR professional that understands or sees something happening that's wrong, or we're making the wrong type of decision, or it's only a decision that upholds the organization and doesn't necessarily support the people that actually help the organization run.
hmm,
If
yeah,
it's wrong regardless of who's asking for it, right? And
that's
so
right.
I think it really puts us in a position that we have to rethink about how we show up in these positions, what advocacy truly looks like, doing the right thing on the behalf of the people does the right thing for the organization, right? And
I
so
like that.
advocacy from my point of view comes with risk, and you have
Uh-huh.
to assess and be okay with the level of risk that you are comfortable with in that position,
Yeah,
and ensuring that the organization's values and how they do things also aligns with that. And if it doesn't, then maybe that's a conversation you need to have about, do you stay there, right? But it
Is it
yeah,
the
doesn't take
right?
away,
Yeah.
yeah, if it's the right thing to do, it
Yeah.
doesn't take away from, advocating and challenging things that ultimately will have a negative impact on the employees that are in that organization. So
yeah,
that's the myth, but that's the work that needs to be done to help support to debunk that myth.
I like that.
Toya, first of all, just kudos to you. It's been such an honor getting to watch
Oh
your
gosh,
your
yeah.
career journey. I mean,
Yes.
Linda and I have talked about that before. Like, have you seen what LaToya is doing? This is
Yeah,
amazing. So,
yeah.
Thank
just
you.
so happy for you. Very happy for CPR to have you in such an integral role. If people want to get in touch with you, how would they do that, LaToya?
Yeah, so I am on LinkedIn. I'm very active in watching and listening and reading on LinkedIn. So LaToya Linzey, if you want to connect with me there. I do some consulting work as well. And
Awesome.
so I do have a website that people can go to if they are interested in my
Great.
services. The website is the People Center, with spaces in between. So the space, people space center.com.
Awesome.
And it kind of talks about the services that I offer and how to get a hold of me there as well.
Okay,
That's
that's great.
amazing. We'll
Yeah,
put
we'll
those in the
definitely
show
include
notes.
that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love that you're out there doing that. It has been so great seeing you again.
Yes.
It feels like there's no
Heaven
time or
home.
distance between us. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just been it's like a warm blanket for sure. So we really appreciate it. We hope all of our listeners enjoyed the episode today as much as we did. And if you did, like, share, comment. We always love to hear. And I love that that's the myth that you chose because actually some of our listeners have been talking about how that whole conversation related to HR and the negativity that oftentimes surrounds it. So such a great thing to leave our listeners with, no doubt. But we hope everyone is having a great summer, and we'll catch up with you on our next episode.
Thank you,
Thank you all.
LaToya.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of the HR Her Resources podcast. We're so happy to have you with us on this journey. Music and production by Logan Misigatis of LJM Productions. We'd also like to thank our intern, Lauren Banas, for creating our logo and supporting our social media postings. If you'd like to connect with Logan or Lauren, you can find their information in the show notes. If you found value in our discussion and think someone else might as well, please follow, subscribe to our LinkedIn, and share with a friend. Until our next episode, please take care and continue to support one another.